This is the Tree of Life, Season 4, Chapter 1. In this episode, we will be talking about how sublimation relates to negation. To go back to an exchange between the spatial non-consensual actor and the archetypal consensual actor, in that exchange the spatial non-consensual actor's impulses remain concealed, which is to say they are not self-conscious, unresponsive to affirmatory narratives of the other. As we know, the sublimating plate, within the 9 plates of a spatial non-consensual actor, is the plate of the hands. Which is to say that the spatial non-consensual actor's negation clings to the spatial plates, through direct inhibition of spatial action. The archetypal consensual actor supplies archetypal assignments to the spatial non-consensual actor, as a condition on meeting the expectations of the associated behaviors following deferral of their expectations, through the sublimating language. Since these archetypal constellations contain negation arising out of the relationships between the archetypes themselves, the negation of the sublimating language arises out of the archetypal constellation. By interpreting the behaviors of the spatial non-consensual actor according to archetypes within the constellation, this negation is gradually transmuted into affirmation, in the satisfaction of the spatial non-consensual actor's expectations. From this we can see the following 7 points are true. 1. Negation is built into our archetypal constellations, as between us and other constituent system members, within the 9 plates of archetypal consensual actors, through archetypal relationships. 2. In the act of sublimation, the negation of the sublimating act arises out of the reinterpretation of the other's action, according to archetypal figures within that constellation. That is to say, the negation is built into the verbalizations pursuant to the constellation itself. 3. The eventual satisfaction of those expectations represents affirmation regarding the negated behaviors, as between archetypal figures. 4. In a spatial non-consensual actor, we already know that the sublimating act takes place in the hands, which means that the negation resides within the spatial plates, as opposed to the archetypal plate. 5. This is why spatial non-consensual actors exhibit concealment, because their negation is spatial whereas the archetypal actor's negation is archetypal. 6. The process of psychoanalysis is the destruction of structures created by sublimating language which include negation, through direct affirmation of the underlying experiences, which are used to construct them. 7. In other words, the process of psychoanalysis is the attribution of self-consciousness to all underlying experiences upon which sublimating structures are created. It is a transmutation process, an internal version of the external affirmational nature of the 9 dialogues of every intersection. In other words, when 2 archetypal consensual actors meet, the affirmational nature of the 9 dialogues of the intersection produce affirmation of 9 impulses self-consciously. But when a spatial non-consensual actor meets with an archetypal consensual actor, all of negation of the spatial actor is transmuted into affirmation for the archetypal consensual individual pursuant to the expectations of the spatial non-consensual individual. In other words, the negation itself is dissolved without any concomitant impact on the impulses of the spatial non-consensual actor. The archetypal actor merely absorbs the negation from the spatial actor and redirects it into affirmation in meeting the expectations of the spatial actor. In clearer language, the negation of the sublimating act involves the transmutation of the negation of the concealed impulses of the other actor into affirmation of negation embedded within an archetypal constellation. That's the end of the podcast for today.